Start recording. All right, we're recording. Now it looks like this share is messing up again. I don't care. I can just read this stuff. Doesn't matter too much. So anyway, welcome to the VC. We have Kidder and Jones. Before we dive in, I wanted to talk about a few VC guidelines. The sound quality of the last session and the one before were fine in my opinion, because people who've been following this know that there have been some real problems with sound quality. Some of that's my fault. There's no innocent people here, but I wanted to run down some guidelines, for folks who want to join, because I get it. It seems like there's a lot of interest. Everybody says, oh, I want to get in on that. Then they never show up. So whatever. But so first of all, yes, some or all of this content may be recorded for uploading to YouTube later. So by participating, you're consenting to being recorded. And I want to strive for good audio quality. This isn't 60 minutes. However, I want to keep background noise and various audio artifacts to a minimum, because that detracts from the content being presented. Some of the earlier VCs, it sounded as if folks were having their home torn down with them in it. And it's kind of a shame, because there's so much good material on these. There's a ton of it. But that kind of thing really detracts. It negates the value. So, with that said, I'd say if you're participating, try to make sure you're properly positioned to do so. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, because you guys are coming through fine. But so I'm just making this as a general point. Don't multitask. Situate yourself. You have good cell phone and or Wi-Fi reception. If you live with others, ask housemates that they not interrupt you for the duration. Perhaps mute yourself when you're not speaking. Not a requirement, but might be a good idea. And situate yourself in a place with little to no background noise. Actually, it's like both of you guys are muted right now. You're fine. If you can go off mute if still says muted. Both of you guys are muted. Why are you muted? Maybe it has something to do with a screen share.
I didn't want to incriminate myself.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, you didn't want to hear. I didn't want to hear all those loud bangs in the background. It's funny that bang interrupted that barky dog. I don't hear him anymore. I wonder how that
The Triple S protocol.
Yeah. So anyway, I had a few topics to cover. Actually, before we get started, Kidder, how's your neighbor doing? Are they still behaving?
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part? Okay.
Yeah, I saw somebody running past their house and the thing went nuts, but they brought it inside as they went around the corner. So,
okay.
Well, I guess.
That's something. They're trying. They'll probably get lazy again, but...
Oh, they will.
Oh, yeah.
People change, not a lot, but in this case, they're not going to change at all. So
yeah, they only change it when they're confronted with very painful consequences. That's the only time. And even then, it's not permanent. You just get a reprieve, essentially. It goes into remission for a time, and I guess it depends on the person. So
it's like the map in the mall. You are here.
Yeah.
You are here in this timeline.
Oh, you could get a worse judge the next time around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you could.
Yeah, I don't think you could. That's a worse thing. What could be? The good outcome was they sort of learned their lesson. They think, okay, we perhaps dodged a bullet this time, but the next time we won't.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might get a judge who's, like we've discussed, a lot of times it depends on who you get. Like with that cop that time. You had a cop, he's probably not a dog hater, but he said, look, this is what the law prescribes, and I'm going to do it. And that's it. I'm going to execute the laws as written. and without injecting any personal bias into it, which is the way they
Yeah.
should do it. Unfortunately, they don't, particularly in this space. So
Yeah, the judge told him basically do better. And I would also call the cops if there is a huge dog loose out in front of my house and so forth. So, you know, he was kind of on our side, but he wanted to weasel out of giving it to me. So
yeah.
he'll have that.
Well, you know, he's supposed to follow the law also. I mean, he's a judge. So what does the law prescribe in a case like that? Prescribe. What do you
Well,
do?
yeah, but he found the half loophole. Oh, you're not in immediate danger. Oh, why? Because we were his therapist for 10 minutes?
Yeah. Well, he's not actually pointing a gun at you. So, no. Yeah, the contortions they go to protect these people and their animals.
Yeah.
And I'm going to segue into that because there's something I have an agenda that I want to discuss today, a few things. Because the contortions they go through to protect dogs and dog owners, it's ridiculous. It's almost entertaining in itself. It would be funny if the matter weren't so serious. So anyway, I wanted to segue into a couple of things. See, one of the screens I have up is reporting dog fighting. And this is interesting because there's been a lot of activity, particularly in the banned pit bulls Reddit, regarding, dog fighting and reporting dog fighters, other pets being used as bait in dog fighting operations. In other words, they'll pick up some non-pit bull dog or some cats or some rabbits or whatever, and they'll essentially just throw them into the pit with the dog to sort of help its gameness. In other words, like increase its bloodlust or whatever. There's a lot of that going on, and you really got to think about if you're trying to rehome a pet, you have to be careful they don't get involved with something like that. I mean, you'd be better off just having them euthanized than having them subject to that, because they're going to be killed in the most excruciatingly painful way possible if that's the case. But what's interesting is, but even aside from that, the Humane Society of the U.S. offers a reward of $5,000 if your tip leads to the conviction of a dog fighter. Now, I say up to $5,000. These people are weasels. Like, you could probably, trigger the biggest dog fighting bust in human history. And I say, okay, here's $20,000 or $20. Right? Because they say, we said up to $5,000. We didn't say it was $5,000. It was somewhere between 0 and 5,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always possible.
Sounds like a McDonald's hiring ad.
We pay up to $100 an hour. I mean, really, we pay minimum wage, but that's up to. I mean, that's between 0 and 100, right? I tell you, all these people are weasels. All of them. But it's interesting, they go, and the FBI takes dogfighting very seriously also. But why don't they take, if a dog deletes a human, why don't they take that seriously or attack somebody? Or if you have a neighborhood being terrorized by a pack of feral mutts, why don't they take that seriously? With that, it's like, well, maybe we'll trap, neuter, and release them sometime this geologic era. Why don't they take that seriously? One thought I had about the FBI and other authorities taking it seriously is dogfighting involves a lot of cash. I mean, typically there's tens or maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars involved, at the time. So they can confiscate that. So it's a way for the government to, dogfighting busts are a way for the government to make money. Whereas going after the owner of a dog that deleted a kid is not. Or not currently. I mean, you could do asset forfeiture there also, but that they don't care about.
And there's also a lot of public will like against dog fighting.
Yeah.
But if it's just some owner's dog, they'll still want to rescue that dog.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh, they want to rescue the dog, and one turning point in all this huge mess was a Michael Vick dogfighting bust back in 2007, I believe. And if I've done some due diligence on how that had been managed before that, because dogfighting was banned nationwide in 1976, although almost every state, at least 45, had state level bans in effect. But the best practice was that all the fight bust dogs would be euthanized, because the consensus was that these are not suitable pets, because not only have they been bred to fight, but they've been trained to also, because what the dog people say, well, it's all in how you raise them, or it's all in how you train them. Well, I think whether you buy into the genetics or the training or some combination of both, a fight bust pit bull is a complete fail. They should all be summarily put down, all of them. But with that Michael Vick bust, and at that point, dog culture had advanced to the point where really people started to value the lives of dogs over the lives of people. So then the motive is, oh, we got to rehabilitate him. We got to find him the right forever home. He just needs better training, which, even 10 or 15 years earlier would have been considered totally batshit insane. But that's what we have, and that's one reason why we have these outcomes, because of that. But yeah, they take, dog fighting. It's considered to be like the ultimate in cruelty. Like it's the most horrible thing you can do. And the couple of issues I have with that is, one, if you take a game bred pit bull or other fighting dog, they like to fight. Like they enjoy it. They're happy doing it. So, because you know what, if they didn't like doing it, they wouldn't do it. Here's an experiment. Go get a couple of rabbits and get them to fight to the death. Do that. Or even cats. I mean, cats will fight too, but it rarely amounts to anything. Why don't they use those? Or even other dog breeds like beagles. Why? Because none of those other animals are inclined to do that. But the pit bulls are. They enjoy it. That's why they're used for such a thing. But people say, oh, they were cruel. They were forced to do it. They're not forced to do it. They like doing it. And the other thing to consider is, what about the cruelty of allowing these murder mutts to maul and kill human beings and other animals? Why is there not that kind of attention? Or why don't we give the attention to those things that we give to this dog fighting? And I guess in dog fighting, it's a lose-lose, because either way, at least one or more dogs are injured, which is a no-go from their perspective. If a dog attacks a human or another animal, well, that's not so bad as long as Fido doesn't get hurt, right? The thought process is completely screwed up. But you know what? If you got a tip on a dog fighter, you can make, well, up to $5,000. There may be other rewards offered also. I don't know if the FBI offers a reward or not. They might. Sometimes they'll do things like that. So, if your, neighborhood dog nuisance involves a suspected dogfighting operation, turn them in. You might get some change out of it.
Get a free coffee mug.
Yeah, free coffee mug. They get a branded FBI coffee mug. That would be pretty cool. I'll take it.
I think my neighbors are in dogfighting. I give this number a call.
Yeah. Well, what is it? They got a Chihuahua and some hound. What kind of dogs
Yeah,
are
they're
they?
certainly fighting.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
What raises an issue too is like what they're talking about here is organized dog fighting, where people are placing wagers on it and so forth. What about impromptu dog fighting? Like you say, if a dog just attacks another, like if a pit bull attacks a border collie, is that actionable dog fighting? I think if we really wanted to put the screws to these people, you would, in a case like that, you would charge both dog owners with dog fighting to really mess with them. Hey, dogs were fighting, you didn't stop it, so I guess it's Gray Bar Hotel for both dog owners. That would really mess with them.
It's like in elementary school when I got punched, we both got detention.
That's
so,
right.
There you go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, they love to enable bullies, don't they? Well, the other thing I wanted to segue into was, and let me see if I can mess with this screen share some more. Let's see, I got the reward for dog fighting. Oh, this one. Let me see if this is resolving correctly. Pause this to preview to save your resources. Derp, derp, derp. Okay. Can you see I have with the conversation the mayoral debate, but that's not what I wanted to discuss. Wanted to discuss this. Investigators find no wrongdoing after postal worker dies in Putnam County dog attack. Now, if you read down here, it seems like the Discord is not cooperating, but I'll just read it. Said the News4Jax I-team has learned new information regarding a dog attack that resulted in the death of a 61-year-old mail carrier in Putnam County, which is in Florida, in August of last year. Pamela Rock was mauled by 5 dogs that got out of a fenced yard after the Putnam County Sheriff's Office said the postal worker's mail truck had broken down on a dirt road. Now, consider this is like a horror movie scenario. Think about how many horror movies involve something like that. Like, I think at least one movie, and what was it? What was that movie franchise? It was actually pretty good. Oh, was it Jeeper Creepers or something like that? At least one of the movies in that. But that's a very common horror movie trope where they say that the car breaks down and they're getting stalked by a serial killer or a monster or whatever. But they said, okay, the I-team has learned that federal, well, I guess because it was a mail worker involved, and local investigations didn't find wrongdoing by Rock's employer, who was actually the federal government, or the dog's owner. The state's attorney's office told the I-team that it is not filing charges against the dog's owner, while an OSHA investigation did not result in any safety violations. A memo from the state attorney's office explains that the dog's owner tried to surrender them twice, including 10 days before the attack. In all, the memo finds there were at least 4 incidents, involving the dogs in the months prior. In February 2022, the dog's owner called Putnam County Animal Control, and you know how proactive they are. You call with a dog problem, they're right on it. Boom. They're all over that, like white on rice. Count on it. They sprang to action. So anyway, he called them and left a message saying he needed to surrender some dogs because he could no longer care for them. Animal control staff told investigators no one ever returned his call or followed up with him. 11 days later, the dogs escaped and attacked a 50-year-old man who was taken to the hospital. Now they should have been, boom, dead right there. that would have prevented all the subsequent harm from occurring. But no. So a deputy told the dog's owner to quarantine the dogs and that animal control would contact him. However, Putnam County Animal Control claimed they never received a police report and that they weren't contacted. Well, they'd already been contacted to remove the dogs because the owner wanted to surrender them, and they wouldn't take them. On August 10th, a woman called police after she said one of the dogs escaped and attacked her car. And we know pit bulls love to maul cars. We've shared plenty of videos on that. I should do a segment on that. The car was damaged, the state attorney's office said, but no one was hurt. Law enforcement referred the case. But remember, I guess violence against cars does not equal violence against humans. It's not like the dogs attacked a person or anything. Derp, derp, derp. Law enforcement referred the case to animal control, which confirmed the dog owner had taken measures to fortify his fence. Fortify. It was then, the memo says, he tried to surrender the dogs to animal control for a second time, but the request was denied based on Putnam County Animal Control's assessment of the situation. 10 days later, investigators determined the dogs escaped the fence that their owner had patched with rocks, logs, cinder blocks, and other materials. I'm sure that was all very secure. In an attempt to keep them contained and attacked rocks. So 10 days later, they broke through this impenetrable barrier and attacked the postal worker. The 5 dogs have since been euthanized. The sheriff's office oh, sorry, go ahead.
I could have just done that to begin with.
Yeah, I know. Why did it go this far? They should have taken, because the thing is, you've got a dangerous, because in a sense, it's like, this is an owner. I could actually, they screwed up by owning them in the first place. Okay. I think the owner, in a case like this, the owner always has at least some culpability because just for owning the dogs at all, if nothing else, right? Because my pit bulls are never going to maul anybody because I don't have them and I never will. Nobody owns a dog by accident. I'm assuming that he adopted them or they were strays that he took in or something. So he has some culpability, even if he kind of tried to do the right thing. Now, if the county won't do the right thing, then there's, he could have taken him to the vet to be euthanized, one at a time. Or there's always, the club favorite, the Second Amendment solution as a last resort. But here's the thing, is nobody wants to deal with these mutts. The owner doesn't want them. The county doesn't want to deal with it. Nobody wants to deal with them. So anyway, so the 5 dogs were finally euthanized after mauling another person, damaging, mauling a car. So the sheriff's office had recommended charges of misdemeanor recklessness on the part of the dog owner. But the state attorney's office investigation found he wasn't reckless based on the actions he had taken to get rid of the dogs and fix the fence. So, he kind of tried to do the right thing. He's not like those 2 assholes in, where was that? That the dogs mauled the 81-year-old man to death and sent his wife to the hospital. They were, they were, that was another matter. Those people were just the hopeless nutters. This guy, I think, may have had just some, maybe a molecule of sanity. So anyway, so the state attorney's office investigation found he wasn't reckless based on actions he had taken to get rid of the dogs and fix the fence. Animal control, they referred the I-team to the county for comment. I don't know, that sentence doesn't make any sense. We did not hear back. So, of course, they're not going to write back. You know, they don't care. So basically, they took insufficient measures. Why isn't the Postal Service getting involved here? I mean, this is a killing of a federal worker. And I think the fact that really the post office should be ashamed. They should, or not all of them, not the rank and file, but the people who run it, the upper management, they should be ashamed of themselves. All these delivery places should be, not just the government ones, but the private sector ones also, like Amazon or UPS or FedEx. They do nothing to protect their people, because you know what, between all those things is what I keep saying is these government agencies and these big companies, they have the political capital to change something. They could do it. Like if the Postmaster General and the CEO of Amazon and the CEO of UPS and the CEO of Federal Express, etc., hell, even like Papa John's Pizza, they went to Congress and they said, we need a change here. This is intolerable. Our people are being attacked. This is not a workplace safety hazard that should exist. Now, what do we do about it? Do we just stop delivering things? Do we allow the carnage to continue? Or do we impose some restraint on these mutt owners? What's the answer? But the thing is, none of them will do that. And that's why we have this problem. I talk about political capital often. And it's a metaphor for accumulated, trust, goodwill, power, influence, and so forth. It's attributed to a person or an arbitrary group or an organization. And the thing is that dogs and dog owners have a shit ton of it. A ton of it. But they're not the only people who have it. These other groups and organizations, look at the U.S. Postal Service. This is a federal agency with what? Tens of thousands of workers. They have influence. And so do these big, Amazon is what? Now the biggest company in the world, or one of the top 10? I don't know. I know their chairperson is probably the richest person in the world, or was. Same thing with these other companies. They could fix this. They could take on the mutt matrix and win if they wanted to, but they won't do it. So they're to blame also. Anyway, rant over. But here's another point. I'm reading the comments. He tried to surrender them. Putnam County Animal Control is a, quote, no kill. They turned him away. Had they not been no kill, then they would have taken the dogs upon presentation, and this woman would be alive today.
So I wonder if he had kill options, or that was just it.
It's always the triple S protocol.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he could have taken
Rule 308.
Yeah. I mean, we could have taken him to the vet for euthanizing, one at a time. Obviously, not all of them. Unless they were just, I mean, the Rule 308 applies if they're just too dangerous to approach. But if you ever like a stray dog behaving dangerously, that's where, Rule 308 applies. But, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't there. But he had options. I mean, he knew that the dogs were dangerous. He knew he couldn't contain them properly. But really, too, is that the government has, probably the culpability is split between him and animal control, because they have an obligation to protect, public safety also. Okay. They knew these dogs were a problem and they didn't do anything about it. But segueing into what this one commenter said, well, he said, no, don't blame the owner. Now, at least partially blame the owner. He says, blame Putnam County Animal Control for adopting a morbid movement, the no-kill situation that has now resulted in a horrible death. This is a disgrace in that charges have not been filed. Okay? But that's the thing is like, yeah, probably one reason why animal control didn't take the dogs was because they're already, at 120% capacity. Every animal shelter in the country is overflowing with dogs, mostly pit bulls. They're just overflowing. They can't take anymore. But the thing is, and the no-kill, even if no-kill isn't the policy or the rule, it's still the inclination. Because, yeah, the inclination of dog people is to keep the dog alive as long as possible. Right? You have to spare that dog's life pretty much at all costs. Even if it means that, well, if a human has to die, well, so be it. Dogs first.
Well, these delivery drivers, if they quit, they find safer jobs, and the replacement, obviously charges more and probably doesn't stay on board long either, then I could see the companies maybe stepping up, things on their end. Is it?
Yeah, I don't see them taking this seriously yet. I mean, at the upper management. I've read some, comments by those folks that, we should do a deep dive into that too, but it just seems that my impression is that the folks who run these, organizations don't take this seriously, and they should. Because, yeah, they're losing good people. And what does happen, though, is the post office will, in some cases, if they've had delivery folks, attacked by dogs, is they'll just essentially redline the whole neighborhood. They tell everybody within a certain radius, like, you know what, we're not delivering to your home anymore because your neighborhood is not safe. You have to come to the post office and pick up your mail. So I guess that's a case where they sort of take it seriously, but that's not the answer either. It's like, okay, your neighbor has a nasty-ass dog. So what's the solution? Well, the solution is we'll just stop delivering to you because you happen to live in close proximity to that person. That's not the answer either. The answer is the nasty-ass dog needs to get removed. That's the solution. But they don't want to pursue that. Nobody wants to do anything to solve the problem. Or nobody important. I mean, we do, but nobody important. And it's just it's a disgrace. Like a lot of these commenters say, it's a disgrace what our delivery people are subjected to, and not just, but even random people, just random pedestrians. You're just endlessly being aggressed towards by these nasty ass mutts. But everybody's supposed to just suck it up and take it. And it's intolerable.
I gotta get going. I had some work to do.
You got some work to do. All right. Well, thanks for joining, man. We're sort of discussing this the other day was, culling these things and Second Amendment solutions. I want to share something else. This was a comment left on another site. Let's see. Yeah. And this was, I forget which, we had a lot of dog bite related fatalities in the past week and a half. I can't keep them straight anymore. I don't even know what this was referencing it to. But so this first commenter said, why didn't they just shoot the dogs and save the cost of quarantine and investigation? So then there was another comment, and I erased the name, but there's one resident of the area said that police initially thought it was a hit and run. That's another thing, too. It's like you can't tell the difference between a car accident and a dog mauling. that was something we discussed on another VC a while back. Was it seems that authorities, the inclination is to, again, bend over backwards to excuse the dog or eliminate the dog as a involved party or whatever. They always say, oh, it was a stabbing. It was, a mountain lion. It was a car accident. It's like, no, they were mauled by dogs. So anyway, so then this other snarky person writes, well, neighbor, when you consider shooting the dogs, it's messy. Oh, we don't want to make a mess, do we? Some of them are going to run, which sounds like a good solution, because if they just run away, well, now they're no longer in the neighborhood eating kids. Some of those may be hit but not killed. Now you have wounded dogs suffering needlessly. Because really the better outcome is you have the human population suffering. That's much better, of course. And this is like, this person is a liar, and I called them out on it. I have euthanized hundreds, possibly thousands of animals. So what is this, like the Jack Kevorkian of the dog world? Humane euthanasia is quiet, calm, and orderly, easier on the animal and the people responsible for euthanizing them. All around a better solution than shooting. And here's the thing, is like, I in theory, I agree with them. Here's a problem. If you've got a mutt behaving dangerously, you don't want to go anywhere near him.
Oh.
Like if it's a dog that can be handled safely, but you don't want to approach him at all, because it could be vectoring rabies or other disease. You don't want to go near him. And obviously, yeah. I mean, hell, I do hog hunting and I shot other things. But obviously, you want to follow all best practices, right? Know what's behind your target. Take down the target in a humane way, right? It's kind of why they don't allow, say, deer hunting with 22s, because the 22s aren't immediately lethal, so you have the animal suffering. You don't want that either, right? But you use, full power rifle cartridge, like with a hog, center of body mass, boom, it just drops them like a bag of dirt. They're not running all over the place, bleeding everywhere, because something like that has a lot of energy in it. So the animal goes immediately into shock. I know, I've done it. Immediately into shock, and it just drops. And you don't have to get close to it. That's, the big advantage. And obviously, yeah, I don't want to turn the neighborhood into a shooting gallery. But the thing is, when everything else fails, like with this guy, what did I respond to him with? I said this. Well, big shot, how about you shake a leg and youth all of those mutts that are terrorizing those neighborhoods? They're not going to youth themselves. And then I said, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be under controlled settings, for that euthanization to work.
Yeah. I mean, in a zombie apocalypse type scenario, it's not going to work. Well, here's the thing, though. So anyway, I followed up. I said, stop worshiping dogs. That way lies ruin. And I said, PPS, you're a liar. And here's the point, too, is, again, I've been dealing with a lot of these types that they say, okay, we're going to take culling off the table, right? No shoot, or even other weapons. You get bow and arrow or crossbow or landmines or whatever. All that stuff's off the table. It's like, okay, fine. But the thing is, they really don't want to euthanize them either, right? It's a bait and switch. and I've written about that, is everything with a nutter is a bait and switch. Because I'll say, okay, we've got a pack of, feral mutts terrorizing the neighborhood. And they say, I'm going to shoot them. And they say, oh, no, no, no. See, that's inhumane. That's mean. Plus, you might, shoot something that doesn't want to get shot. Which, too, is, you want to follow all best practices. So I say, okay, fine, you solve the problem. But the thing is, they don't do anything. That's why these problems have just gone on and on and on and continue to get worse. Because that's what I said. You think that this is a good idea, fine. You get off your dead ass, okay? Get a couple of thousand syringes of the pink juice and solve the problem. But they're not, I don't know of any situation, or probably few, where that's done. Typically, what they do is, and they don't even do this that often either, but they'll trap, neuter, release. So they'll trap them, they'll vet them, and then turn them loose again. And it's like, great, you just intentionally have turned a murder mutt loose in my neighborhood. Thanks a lot. That's just great. But that doesn't work either because, well, for a couple of reasons. One is, you haven't solved the problem, because now you've just, instead of like an unvetted murder mutt, you now have a vetted murder mutt. You have a nice, healthy murder mutt. Great. Terrific. And also the pack continues to burgeon, to grow, because people are adding to it. You have people dumping their dogs. Again, backyard breeders who can't sell their pits. They just, turn them loose rather than surrender. Of course, they can't surrender them anymore because all the shelters are full of pit bulls. So it's kind of like, I'm actually a minimalist. Like, if they said, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to trap all these things or use dart guns or whatever. We're going to purge them. Okay. You do that, but they don't. And again, it's a bait and switch, because what they want is they want the dogs to basically just keep doing what they're doing. They're dogs first people. It's always a bait and switch with these people. So, and the thing is, like, euthanizing them. I don't even have access to the pink juice. You can't just buy that at Petco. Like, what are they talking about? But yeah, they're just trying to protect the dogs. That's what they're trying to do. So,
and once you capture the dog, once a dog's been captured, even if the plan was to euthanize it, like you said, bait and switch, they can change course. I can see the intent there.
Yeah,
you can see it in the comment sections. People realize, this is a dangerous dog. It's hurt people, and they'll say, "Oh, I want to have that dog. I want to."
Oh,
they'll offer to spend all kinds of money to bring that dog to them.
Exactly.
And they think they're going to be the one that just going to, love the violence out of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, just give them their proper forever home. I think, you're right. Many of these people, they have fantasies about that, where they say, "Oh yeah, I'll take in this poor neglected pupper, and he'll be my, he'll, give me unconditional love for the next, whatever, 12, 15 years. Which probably isn't the case. And the thing is, there's no demand side solution for that problem either. Because we were talking about shelters overflowing with pit bulls. Even if every pit bull in a shelter got adopted today, they just fill right back up again. It's a supply side issue. And this is the same kind of thing. You're right. It's always a ploy to essentially spare the dog, right? I was thinking about, I don't know if you and I had ever discussed this, but back last decade when I was blogging, I blogged about, Mick the Mauler. I use Mick in a lot of my memes, and I still talk about him a lot. It's a really interesting case. But and it sort of, segues into, or overlaps with an animal rights discussion. Like, do dogs have rights under our legal system, for example? And what happened was, a long story short, it was an American bulldog, which is kind of like a pit bull knockoff, tears a face off a kid, off a 4-year-old. So the dog's owner surrendered the dog. He surrendered him to the county. He didn't have him put down, but he took him to the county and he said, you know what? Just do whatever the hell you want with him. I'm done. Right? So now the dog is now property of the government, and their protocol was to put the dog down unless the owner objects, right? Because that's how a lot of these mutts get spared, is, the owner can sue or plead or petition to save the dog, but he wasn't. He just signed the dog over, and he was done, right? And that's very important as this goes forward. So the dog's scheduled to get put down. And it was an animal rights outfit, which really is a dog rights outfit, called the Lexus Project. Basically sued on behalf of the dog, right? Or petitioned on behalf of the dog to have him spared. And it was all the usual, excuses or narratives. It's like, oh, he's not to blame. He didn't know what he was doing and all this stuff. But interestingly, though, that the narrative from the Lexus Project was like, you can't just kill him. We don't summarily execute people in this country. I mean, even Ted fucking Bundy had 247 appeals, which, of course, it raised the issues like a dog is not a person, because Ted at least was a human being with rights. But they successfully, sued to have the dog spared, right? Because remember that the dog, this organization, it was a lawyer who worked there, was representing the dog. So the dog literally had standing in our legal system, which is ridiculous. So anyway, so they said, okay, they cut a deal where the dog would be put in jail. The dog would be sentenced to life in jail, literally. And when you think, what is this, a cartoon? What is this, like Marmaduke or something? So, okay, so the deal was cut. The dog was spared euthanasia. It was spared the death penalty in exchange for life in jail. This is what they do with human convicts. But what was interesting was, though, when the dog was, was the accused, they insisted that he was a human being with a full set of civil rights, or at least approximately, right? But then when the dog was sentenced, so went to they got it pled down to a non-death penalty offense. The dog was sentenced to jail, but as soon as that happened, this was a bait and switch. After he was sentenced to jail, then they started a petition to get him out. Because they said, look, this isn't, Charles Manson or some Nazi war criminal. It's just a wee little fur baby. He didn't know what he was doing. And putting a dog in jail, that's just cruel. You can't do that.
Rattlesnakes don't know what they're doing either.
Yeah, they don't. But so anyway, so that's what happened was, and it's a long story short, I actually have a tag on my blog for Mickey. Probably if you have a whole day with nothing to do, you can probably put up 12 or 15 blogs about it following the case. What happened was the outcome was that the dog was actually released to his lawyer. So the lawyer had kept the dog as a pet until it died, and I think he is dead now. One thing that I don't know if it was really relevant was the dog was sick. I think he had skin cancer. But so what? The vet can, treat the dog in jail, or the dog can get temporarily released to a vet hospital if that's what needs to happen. But the deal was that the dog was not going to be put back into circulation. He was not going to be put back on the street. And that's the other thing. It's why that's why you have to, always put him down. Always. No exception. Because anytime they try to spare the dog, all that is, it's part of a bait and switch. It's part of a ploy to get the dog back onto the street. Not just save its life, but to set it free. And that's
I
why
just think,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I just think all the, man hours in the legal system went into this dog. It's, I mean, if I know one thing about the legal system is they can't get enough people to run it.
Yeah.
It,
Well, that's the other downside of, attributing, you know, basically those civil rights to animals, because literally it's going to overwhelm and imagine if every dog bite was treated that way. It would totally, yeah, the whole system would just implode almost immediately. It would be Mad Max probably in 12 hours. Which is why, because it's one reason, yeah, I mean, the due process is, like you said, it's very expensive. It's time consuming. Yeah, there's a lot of this level of effort, consumes lots of resources. I mean, I guess the solution would be to tax dog owners to pay for it, but they're not going to pay that. Because, yeah, I don't want to pay for it. Because, yeah, just, shooting a damn thing, it's not that expensive.
oh,
As I say, it's cheap too. The other problem with, sparing them or doing a trap neuter releases is that it's a moral hazard because it, I don't know if it encourages, but it does. It encourages people to just dump their animals because they figure, oh, yeah, they'll be fine. They'll just get, they'll just frolic in the forest and everything will be great. But that's not what happens. But they find out it's like, okay, if you just turn your mutt loose, it's going to get deleted either via euthanasia or perhaps, yeah, Rule 308. Then it shifts the mindset. It's a disincentive. It's some of them. Maybe some of them don't care, but I imagine some of them will. But that's why this like trap neuter release doesn't work. But yeah, and you can't trust like with this guy. I believe is still up here. I told him, I said, you're a liar. You lie. You don't believe that. All you want to do is get the mud off the hook. That's it. That's all any of them want to do. I know it sounds cynical, but I've been dealt with plenty of these people, and I've seen plenty of these situations play out. The other, angle to this is they'll push the sanctuary, uh, you know, angle. They'll say, oh, well, we'll just put him in a sanctuary. But often that's just a suburban backyard. And particularly if the dog is dangerous, and this has happened too, where a dangerous dog has gone to one of these sanctuaries and then gone on to attack people. I think I blogged about that too. There was a dangerous dog named Bones. And it was a situation a little like Mix, where the dog had, I don't know if it killed anybody, but, it attacked probably multiple people. And Mick was a repeat offender also. The dog had attacked multiple people. The dog had been ordered destroyed, but then, yeah, some, dog nut outfit, or perhaps the owner, I forget which one, campaigned to spare the dog. They said, you know what, we'll put him in a sanctuary where he can, he'll be isolated from the public, right? And he can just live out his life there. Okay. So that way everybody gets what they want. The public is protected and the dog gets to live. But that's not what happens because, yeah, there's no oversight of these things. And I think, the dog was just dumped in some suburban backyard where it went on to injure more people. Hey, DarkCastle's here. What's up, man?
hey,
Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. Yeah, we're kind of a ways into this. We're talking about dangerous dog laundering or recycling. Don't litter, reuse. You got a mauler, it's like, no, don't just send it to the landfill. Let's put it back into circulation.
someone else might want it.
Yeah, someone else might want it. Anyway, you and I, we need to, not today, but now that you've joined, I wanted to maybe see how things are in the park system. But we need to do a segment, just the two of us. Maybe some other folks can listen in or maybe chime in a little. Probably about an hour or so, talking about our experiences with dogs in parks, forests, camping areas, and the like. I know we
Yeah.
both have a lot to say, and because I think that that's an aspect of this that doesn't get looked at enough. And I know you have a lot of experience in the space. I have a lot of experience in the space. So I think I'll be following up with you. And we can schedule a time that's good for both of us, and we'll get that put in. So get that
Oh.
out there.
Funny you mention it though, because I went hunting with my friend. I went to visit him in Texas last December, and we were gonna go hog hunting and didn't find any deer, any hogs, but we found a pit bull.
Oh, great.
So, I mean, I was just gonna like just ignore it. Maybe someone's pet got loose. It's a hunting area. I just didn't want to deal with it. But he calls up the park ranger. Hey, what can we do? There's a loose dog. It seems friendly. And park ranger, I think, says, well, you can take it over to animal control or you can shoot it. I mean,
Did he really
whatever works
say
for
that?
you.
Who did he call?
I think it was a park ranger.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though, is that here's the thing, though. Yeah, I wouldn't take that to the bank. I would take that with a grain of salt. I mean, sure, you can shoot it. Now, will you get arrested for it? Like, maybe, because, you know, dogs are protected. Because, yeah, the hogs, particularly in Texas, you know, hogs, like kind of like here in Florida, they're basically just delete on site. You know, there's no, at least on private property, there's zero restrictions. I mean, obviously following best practices, like if the dog is sitting on top of a 5,000, or the hog is sitting on top of a 5,000 gallon propane tank, probably not a good idea to take the shot. But with that said, you can delete all the hogs you want, but dogs, no. But maybe in Texas it's different. Maybe, you know, an at-large dog is, I'm not surprised to see that, because pit bulls are used in hog hunting quite frequently. I don't use them. I don't use any dog. I don't use a dog for anything. But and I think, and the reason is that they're disposable. Like if you have a really good hunting dog that you spent thousands of dollars for the puppy and thousands of dollars to have it trained, you don't want that deleted by game. Right, you don't want, because it's like, you know, it's you know, the dog. I mean, unlike 99.9% of dogs, it's actually worth something. But the thing is the hogs are, because they're not wild animal, they're animals are feral, and they can be pretty dangerous. So what happens is, yeah, they use pit bulls because pit bulls are basically disposable. You get, I mean, some places are actually paying people to take them. Say you turn them loose, you know, the pit bull will, you know, go after them, you know, because that's usually what they use the dog for, to like flush game. So, you know, if it's in, you know, heavy underbrush, the dog will, you know, basically aggress towards the animal, chase it out of the bushes, which gives you an opportunity to shoot it. Now, of course, with pit bulls, the pit bull's going to want to tear the pig to shreds. It's not just going to chase them. And the pig will fight back, you know, and a pig, they got these tusks. They can tear the shit out of a dog. But they don't care because, okay, let's say you take 5 pit bulls hog hunting and you come back with one. It's like, who cares? It doesn't matter because they're not worth anything. And I'm opposed to that too. It's one thing to use, like, say, beagles to flush game. But going back to what we were discussing earlier is that, you know, if you're going to delete something, you want to do it in the most efficient, you know, fastest, most efficient way possible. Right? Like deboning the animal while it's still alive is totally unethical. But that's kind of what happened. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting if you saw that. So, and you didn't see any hogs.
No, I mean, I guess we were only there overnight, and only in one little area. It was his first time actually hunting, and mine too. So,
Yeah.
and,
You know what he might want to do if he wants to, or you, to pursue it is, what I do is I connect with an outfitter, and it's sort of like basically a guide, and they help you out. Not just with, shooting them is, for my opinion, is the easy part. It's what do you do after, because you want to process it. I guess I don't like waste. I would like all the meat to be used, because I don't take it all. I don't take most of it, but the outfitter will do something useful with it. Often they'll donate it to food banks, to feed, for use in like homeless shelters and the like, which is a good use. I mean, it's a good use of it. I don't want to just, leave it to rot. Typically what I'll do is I'll take the back straps because it's like the best meat, and I'd say the outfitter can just do whatever they want with the rest of it. But that's why I don't do it on my own, or one reason why I don't do it on my own, because all the logistics of that are kind of difficult, because really processing the animal, that's the interesting part.
I mean, yeah, cutting it open, cutting all the parts you don't want on the spot. Hope
Yeah.
you brought power tools,
Yeah. Well, what we use is box cutters. Mainly because you just throw them away when you're done with them. That's what we use. Of course, too, as the rest of it, I don't know, the outfitter may use some bone saws and the rest of it. But just because you string it up, you hose it off, you disembowel it, you get all the guts out, and those need to be disposed of. And then, too, is you can cut off the, back straps, and I'll put that in a chest full of ice and take them. I just let the outfitter have the rest of it. What I'll do too is they'll give me some wild hog sausage in exchange, which is really interesting stuff. It's very, very lean, very low fat content. So it's not like the pork sausage you get at the grocery store. I like it, actually. I mean, if it's done right. But yeah, so also you want to make sure, like I said, it's kind of dangerous. So you want to hunt out of tree stands or some kind of elevated position if you can. The other option too is, if you know somebody, and actually I do, who has a large property with a hog infestation, you can connect with them. But yeah, so you saw a pit bull. Well, you think, hog, dog, it's only a one letter difference. Like, what's the big deal?
Well, not as much meat from one of those.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's too
maybe it's a good thing we didn't run into one, because we were on ground level. I mean,
yeah. I mean, they're fairly. I mean, they're nowhere near as aggressive as dogs are. Because I see them when I'm hiking too. Well, I mean, I see pit bulls when I'm hiking, but hogs too, and they don't mess with me, so I don't worry about them too much. But yeah, if you behave aggressively towards them, I say, you start shooting at them, they can go after you, and they have. There haven't been a lot of hog-related deaths, but I think maybe a half a dozen or so in the last, I forget, I don't have the statistics up, in the last 20 years. And I think 5 of the 6 were hunting related. There was another case where a woman who was in Texas was, attacked and mauled to death by hogs right outside of her, I think her workplace. I don't
in the
know.
hospital.
Maybe
I think I heard of that too.
Yeah, I forget exactly where that was. I want to do some more work on the hog situation also, because what's interesting about that is they're starting to encroach on, highly populated areas. There's a housing development south of me that's actually got a bad hog problem. It's like destroying people's lawns. I think it did aggress towards one person, but there was no injury. But that's a problem. Because also it's an HOA development, and they don't allow fences. But then what happens, though, is what's ironic is, like, if a hog destroys your yard, well, they'll fine you for having a yard that's all torn up. They'll say, well, you got to resod that or we're going to fine you. But, oh, no, you can't keep the hogs out or do anything proactive. Thing is, you got to take them out before they get to the neighborhoods.
You're going to need a strong fence if you want to keep them out.
Yeah, I would think that, I mean, a chain link would probably work, but they are pretty tough. I mean, I think their tusks can cut steel to some extent. But yeah, big problem. The Hogmageddon. I think it's going to be the title of my next hog video. Or the Hoggy Apocalypse.
Man. Well, if all the dogs just drop dead on Earth, that'd probably be the next, runner-up as far as pests go.
Yeah.
It's a very small one in comparison.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the dynamics of the hog problem are very different. Even when people complain about any other animal, they say, what about that? And they say the short answer is, well, that doesn't have a worldwide supremacy cult protecting and promoting them. That's the difference. Because like with the hogs, you have a handful of animal rights people trying to advocate for them. But yeah, hogs don't really have any political capital. And plus, on the other side of it, you have all these other interests, like the conservation interests. Like, for example, the federal and state park services are anti-hog. Like in state parks, they never allowed hunting, but now they're starting to allow hog hunts, certain times, not all the time, limited hog hunting. Because, yeah, they just destroy everything. They totally just tear up the forest like merciless. I've seen it. I blogged and vlogged about that too. It looks like somebody took a giant rototiller and just rototilled up the whole forest floor. Just destroyed. So you have those interests. You have the conservation interests. You also have the agricultural interests because they destroy crop and other agricultural interests. And I blogged about that too. So I have a friend here who has an interest in a tree farm because one of the big agricultural products here is wood. It's timber, right? Either for lumber or paper. So they planted 40 acres of pine seedlings. And you got to have a really low time preference to be a tree farmer because it's not like corn where you plant it, you can harvest whatever 4 to 6 months later. Those trees got to grow for decades before you yield anything, right? So you got to have a very low time preference. They planted all these seedlings. Within a week, hogs had destroyed 10 acres of them. They rooted them up and ate the roots off them. So people like that have, an interest, again, forget they have political capital because, again, the conservation people have political capital. The agricultural people, farmers, they have special interest groups that agitate for their interests also. So when one of these, animal rights idiots says, oh, you can't shoot Porky the pig. We don't do that to people. And all these other groups are like, no. We're deleting these things. We're not going to let them just destroy our farms and forests. It's not going to happen. So unless you come to the table with like a real solution, we're going to keep shooting them. You know what they do is because, well, when they allow private parties to shoot them, you have unlimited self-help options. But actually, the government does do a lot in the area also. They build these enormous traps or like corrals, but it works like it's sort of got a one-way gate in it. So they'll build these corrals with like a one-way gate in it. They'll put all kinds of tasty stuff in there, like they'll pile it up with corn and other things that the pigs find yummy. And then when you get enough of them in there, they just shoot them all. It's like literally like shooting pigs in a barrel. Imagine doing that with dogs.
I mean, easy for me to imagine, but
Yeah. But again, it
Yeah.
all comes down to political capital because Fido's just too big to fail, at least under the current political paradigm. I guess that that there's a lot of people who take offense or objection to what dogs and dog people do in society, maybe even a majority. But the problem is that the dog people have a lot of, they have a very, I guess, powerful incentive and interest to promote these things. They have, ideological interests and financial interests because there's money, people have pointed out, there's plenty of money being made there. And they have a very powerful ideological interest because to them, the Fido is a sacred animal, literally, in many cases. Whereas the opposition, like people like us, I mean, we have we have the public health, public safety, human quality of life interest, but it's not, at least not yet, it's not solidified around any real organization or group of activists or anything like that. In other words, the opposition to the dog cult is very diffuse. It's kind of nebulous. So that's why the dog people almost always get what they want, as opposed to these other animals. Like, again, pigs, the very little political capital, and the opposition to just letting those things do whatever they want is pretty strong. So hope maybe that'll change someday. One can hope. So DarkCastle, what do you think of my proposal? Does that sound like good to you? Having like a one-on-one VC on dogs and parks and forests and the like?
Yeah, we could do that sometime.
Yeah.
I've been just kind of busy lately, and even today, I can't stay too long. I just put myself on mute because I was making a coffee.
Okay.
And,
yeah. Thanks. I appreciate that. When I started, I said, going back to, well, you're probably you could listen to the whole thing if you want to, but in the beginning, I started, the preamble, basically saying that, the first few VCs we did with the recordings, like the sound quality was terrible. I mean, it sounded like somebody's house was being torn down with them in it. And I don't want to exclude anybody. Everybody has brought a lot of good things to the table. But the thing is, when you have, whatever, the background noise or the distortion or whatever, it detracts from the content and it turns people off, because I can see somebody's listening to this and they're like, I can't hear any more of this. It sounds like a building being demolished. So anyway, yeah, I appreciate that. So, so I want people, I want as many people to participate as possible, perhaps not all at once. But the thing is, with the caveat that you have to be properly situated to do so. So with that said, yeah, we'll do that. Maybe think about it. Maybe you can write down, some of the experiences you've had, bad experiences with dogs, dog owners, dealing with park staff, and so forth. I know you've shared a lot of that in bits and pieces. We get all that together. And one, thing I've never really discussed in all that much detail were my experiences. Well, not just hiking in general, but as a hike leader. And actually why I'm no longer a hike leader. Why that?
I remember that from one of the other VCs. That was interesting.
Yeah, we didn't
area
record it.
about-
We didn't record it. We could go over it again. It's I was always tempted to vlog about it, to write about it. But I think it actually sounds better in this format to actually go through it and then actually discuss it with somebody else, particularly yourself, because you and I have very similar backgrounds, at least in that space. But yeah, it's like the dogs and dog people, in parks and forests and the like, present a huge problem. And the thing is, it actually, it impedes and interferes with the access of others. And as and it's not even good for dogs. Like taking your dog to the forest and turning him loose is a terrible idea. It's stupid. There's no upside to it. Now, these idiots all think that their dog is super smart and can handle himself. Here's a clue, dog people. He can't. He's too dumb. He doesn't have the right, he's not smart enough. He doesn't have the right instincts. He's not experienced enough. He's going to get injured. I want to share something real quick because everybody's going to find this hysterical. You probably remember a vlog I put up last year where I was hiking. Actually, I was alone. And I had a run-in with an off-leash pit bull. And I think I remember the title of it was Shoota-bull. And where I actually pulled a gun on a dog. I didn't fire. The dog owner was not in line of sight at that point. Normally, if something like that happens, you got to call police immediately. But I figured, you know what? Nobody saw me. I didn't fire the weapon, so fuck it. I'm just going to leave. Not the cops care.
But if they did see you immediately, because they are going to, and they're going to tell them something really different.
Yeah,
from what
sorry,
happened.
you broke up.
You need to get your story out there.
Yeah, you broke up a little bit there, but the point is, anytime, like even if it just presented, like if you pull a gun on a person, even, you always want to call the cops right away and tell them what happened, because the police, typically their default assumption is whoever calls them first is the victim, but the dog's not going to tell the owner, the dog's not going to, nobody saw me. The weapon wasn't fired. So I said, fucking him. But that's a very exceptional situation because, I was in the middle of the forest. Nobody saw it. So it's kind of like, if a tree falls in the forest and nobody hears it, it's like, and you know what? I can, even though we have concealed carry rules here, I can, present if nobody sees me, I guess, but I didn't think it justified to call the police. I probably should have, but you know what? And I'm dying.
If nobody sees you, then, but if they saw you, I would say you do need to win the race to call 911.
Yeah. So, I mean, the advice is, but in any case, because that story had almost a humorous subtext to it that I didn't go into, talking about idiots turning their dogs loose in the woods and how it eventually, maybe it won't have a bad outcome every time, but if you do it enough, there's going to be a bad outcome. Count on. But in any case, the property I was on, it's not actually not a state park. I think the state park system maintains it, and there's not a lot of facilities. It has hiking trails, a couple of picnic areas, but the property in question is actually owned by the Florida National Guard. And they used it as a live fire range for probably 50 years or so, maybe the 30s to the 80s. Don't quote me on that, but they used it as a live fire range for a long time, where, for example, the guardsmen could, or guards people, sorry, could, essentially, test practice with artillery, tanks firing explosive rounds, live hand grenades. Also, the Navy used it as a bomb range during that same period. So the property has an unexploded ordnance issue where you've got, some, like, if they fire, say, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Wanted pit.
Yeah, you're breaking up
All
pretty.
those unwanted pit bulls, you can
Turn them loose, and turn them loose in there. But the thing is, and it's safe to hike in. They allow hunting too, but it's just like every other. The first thing you do is stay on the trail. Don't just wander off into the woods, because all the hiking trails are probably for 100 feet on either side too, and all the common areas, the picnic areas, the parking areas, all that's been, they've gone over like every square millimeter looking for this, any UXO, it's the unexploded ordnance. Because what'll happen is, where, say they fire an artillery round with, say, a contact fuse, like an impact fuse, and it just smacks into the ground and doesn't go off. They don't always keep track of that stuff, but now you've got a bomb just underneath the surface of the ground, and it's very unstable. Like, even just stepping on it or near it could set it off. And that happens, particularly in places where lots of wars have been fought over the last couple hundred years, like Europe and parts of Asia. So anyway, so the property has an unexploded ordnance issue, and there's a big sign at all the entrances warning you of this. But if you adhere to the best practice, general hiking best practices, you don't have to worry about it. But again, you turn Fido loose and he runs off into the woods, he could trip over, some unexploded howitzer projectile and get blown up. Now you're thinking that probably the dog haters are listening to this and thinking that would be like the funniest thing that ever happened. Which is true, it would be, but that has a potential to injure others also, right? Because if you're even 100 yards from something like that, you could be hit with shrapnel or flying debris or whatever. It's a really bad situation. But again, if you keep your dog on a leash, or even better, don't bring him at all, you don't have to worry about it. But that's the thing, is like these assholes, like last time we were talking about dogs harassing wildlife, and how it seems like many of these bad wildlife encounters involve a dog, because they go to a place like that, they let the dog run, the dog gets mixed up with a bear or a puma or whatever, and basically starts a fight with the animal, and then the owner tries to get involved to protect the dog, and then now they're killed or injured also. But the whole thing was instigated by the out of control dog, because without that, none of that other stuff would have happened. So it's a kind of thing, imagine you're hiking on this property I just talked about. Some idiot lets their mutt run in the woods. It stumbles over like an unexploded bomb that the Navy dropped there back in the 50s, blows up. Now you're injured. Of course, the dog is vaporized, but now you're injured because some dumbass couldn't keep their dog on a leash. And I don't know the probability of that. It's pretty unlikely, but they say that. They're like, you know what? If you go off the trail far enough, you might encounter some of these devices. You have to be, so that's sort of an extra layer of caution you have to take in a place like that. But it's definitely positive. Another thing, don't let your dog run. Don't do it. Anyway, where are we up to? I think we're up to, I know DarkCastle you just joined, but we're up to almost an hour and a half. And I probably need to get on with my day. So I'm probably going to close the call out soon. What Was there anything either you guys wanted to bring up before I close?
Well, I would say someone in the Discord was saying like,
Yeah, you're breaking up really bad there, man. You're breaking up really. Can you hear me? You're breaking up really bad. We're getting maybe every third or fourth word. Why don't you just contact me later, either in the chat or privately, and we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, but yeah, I'm only getting every third or fourth word. So, how about you,
Yeah,
Joan?
I'm probably not such a good looking.
Yep.
We'll try it later.
Yeah, yeah. How about you, Jones? How you doing?
I'm good. I can't think of anything off the top of my head
All right.
to bring up though.
Well, if you do, sometimes I'll do that. If you have a thought or an idea, jot it down and bring it to the next one. So, all right, guys, I'm going to close it out. So, as usual, this is Animal on Control. And as always, people first. Catch you later, guys.
Thanks for having us.
All right, sure. Okay, later, man. Bye.
Bye. Good to see you, DarkCastle.
Yeah, good to see you.
All right, later, guys.